Some people feel life hitting them so hard that they can barely catch their breath. Failure after failure leaves them exhausted, questioning whether they have the strength to rise again. Every setback leaves a mark, both on the body and the spirit, and sometimes it feels like there is no way forward. Yet, even in the darkest moments, there is a path to rebuild inner strength. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." The person in this story learns to face challenges directly, turning each fall into a stepping stone toward growth. They are no longer victims of circumstance. Instead, they rebuild themselves stronger after every failure, learning resilience, courage, and focus along the way. Viewers are invited to witness this journey, to feel how they rise, and to start recognizing the power hidden within themselves. 1. Embrace discomfort. Welcome the breaking point. When life throws relentless challenges, the person in this story feels the weight of every blow. The fear of pain and discomfort tugs at them, tempting them to step back, to avoid struggle, to seek the easiest path. In today's world, comfort has become a trap. People escape every minor difficulty, but in doing so, they grow weaker with each avoidance. Stoic philosophy teaches a different way. Pain, when approached intentionally, becomes a training ground for resilience and strength. Marcus Aurelius himself faced epidemics, wars, and betrayals. Yet he walked directly into each trial, knowing that the mind and spirit grow through adversity. Similarly, in modern life, failure in a job, a personal betrayal, or the collapse of a long-planned project can feel crushing. If the individual in this story avoids these hardships, they miss an opportunity to cultivate endurance and internal fortitude. Each day, they choose one discomfort. It might be a cold shower in the morning, exercising despite fatigue, or speaking a difficult truth that others avoid. At first, their body protests, their mind resists, and doubt whispers that it's not worth it. But with every deliberate choice to face difficulty, they feel a subtle transformation. Muscles tighten, posture straightens, the heart steadies, and the mind sharpens. They begin to understand that comfort does not produce strength. Every avoidance had previously conditioned them to weakness. Every voluntary hardship now reshapes them. The fear that once held them back becomes a mirror, reflecting areas where they can grow. The pain, once unbearable, becomes a familiar teacher, guiding them to endure more, to focus deeper, and to act with clarity under pressure. Through repeated practice, the person internalizes a powerful truth. Discomfort is not the enemy. It is the tool. By welcoming the breaking point, they learn to stand in the storm without collapsing. They begin to notice a pattern. The more they confront fear, the less power it holds over them. Each deliberate challenge, no matter how small, builds resilience that carries into every other aspect of life. Finally, they anchor themselves with a declaration. Discomfort becomes the training ground for my inner strength. This statement is not just words. It is a daily reminder that growth lives on the edge of difficulty and that rising stronger is always a choice, even when life seems determined to knock them down. 2. Control response. Don't let emotions break them. When setbacks hit unexpectedly, the person in this story feels a storm rising within. Anger, frustration, and helplessness churn in their mind, tempting them to lash out or retreat. Every insult, every rejection, every unfair moment threatens to break their composure. Yet Stoic wisdom reminds them that it is not what happens that defines a person, but how they respond. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react that matters." The individual observes these words and begins to test them in daily life. A harsh comment from a colleague, a betrayal by a friend, or a setback in a project no longer triggers an automatic reaction. Instead, they pause, take a deep breath, and consider their response before acting. Through this deliberate practice, they learn to regain control. The initial surge of emotion is acknowledged but does not dictate action. Each pause strengthens their awareness, each breath restores clarity, and each conscious choice reinforces internal authority. Over time, they realize that by mastering their responses, they reclaim power that circumstances alone could never take. The more they practice, the more they discover a profound truth. The mind is strongest when untethered from impulsive reactions. Challenges that once felt overwhelming now become opportunities for growth and refinement. By observing without succumbing, they cultivate a resilience that withstands life's most turbulent storms. Finally, they affirm quietly to themselves, "Through mastery over my responses, I regain control and clarity." This principle becomes a cornerstone of their daily life, guiding each step and fortifying their inner strength against the chaos of the external world. 3. Let go of fairness. Accept reality. The person in this story often feels the sting of injustice. Projects fail despite their effort. Promises are broken, and recognition is denied. Every instance of unfairness could have been a source of anger or despair, but they begin to see a different path. Seneca taught that expecting fairness from the world is a trap. The moment they release the need for life to conform to their sense of justice, they reclaim energy that was previously wasted on frustration and resentment. Instead of focusing on how others should act, they turn their attention inward, examining what is truly within their control. They make a simple daily practice of listing 3 things they can control: actions, choices, and attitudes. By focusing on these, they convert the sting of injustice into fuel for growth. The bitter taste of disappointment transforms into clarity, and frustration becomes a mirror reflecting areas where resilience and patience can expand. Over time, they notice that life's unfairness no longer debilitates them. Each perceived injustice becomes an opportunity to practice acceptance, sharpen focus, and strengthen internal fortitude. Through this shift, the external world loses its grip over their emotions. They anchor themselves with the thought. They release fairness and harness reality. This simple truth becomes a guiding principle, a quiet but powerful source of stability in a world that rarely offers certainty. 4. Focus on what can be controlled. Release the rest. The person in this story learns to distinguish between what lies within their grasp and what does not. The urge to control outcomes, other people's actions, or unpredictable circumstances often leaves them restless and drained. In the past, they chased results they could not dictate, investing energy into futile attempts to bend reality to their will. Stoic philosophy teaches that peace comes from focusing solely on what can be controlled: thoughts, choices, and deliberate actions. The person imagines themselves at the helm of a ship in a storm. Their hands firmly on the wheel, they cannot calm the waves or the wind, but they can steer, adjust, and maintain balance. It is in this distinction between what they can command and what they cannot that they find freedom. Each day they ask themselves, is this within my control? For matters that are not, they practice letting go, releasing the mental grip that once tightened around every disappointment. By consistently returning attention to actions and attitudes, they create a steady center of strength. They notice a remarkable change. Decisions become clearer, stress diminishes, and their presence stabilizes even in chaos. The distractions of what others do or what might happen no longer pull them off course. They recognize that true power does not come from controlling the world, but from mastery over themselves. Finally, they remind themselves they stand strong, centered in their own actions. This principle guides every step, offering resilience and calm amid uncertainty. Through this disciplined focus, the person begins to notice a shift in how they experience challenges. What once felt overwhelming now appears as a series of manageable steps. The emotional storms that would have once consumed them are now met with steady observation. By consistently practicing the distinction between what can and cannot be controlled, they build a mental fortitude that acts like an inner shield. They begin to see discomfort not as a threat, but as a signal. When anxiety rises, when frustration flares, it is a reminder that their attention has strayed toward things beyond their influence. By returning focus to their own choices, their own actions, they reclaim energy and direction. Each conscious decision strengthens a foundation of resilience that supports them through trials, both large and small. This awareness also cultivates patience. They no longer demand immediate results or justice from the world. They recognize that growth is cumulative, often invisible in the moment, but undeniable over time. Every challenge navigated with calm and purpose becomes a layer of preparation for the inevitable difficulties ahead. With this clarity, the person is ready to embrace the next step: voluntary hardship. Having learned to release the uncontrollable, they can now intentionally step into situations that test their limits. This deliberate practice is not reckless, but measured, designed to further strengthen the mind, body, and spirit. It is the natural progression from observing and controlling the internal to actively forging resilience in the external world. They carry forward the principle: strength grows not in comfort, but in deliberate challenge. And with that understanding, they prepare to face hardship with awareness, knowing that every trial they willingly encounter fortifies them for the ones they cannot avoid. 5. Build resilience. Voluntary hardship. Having learned to focus on what can be controlled, the person now turns their attention to deliberately seeking challenges that stretch their limits. They understand that true strength is forged not in comfort, but in intentional struggle. Voluntary hardship is not about punishing oneself, but about building immunity to life's unavoidable difficulties. They start with small, deliberate choices each day: enduring a cold shower in the morning, pushing through fatigue during exercise, or speaking a difficult truth even when it risks conflict. Each act of conscious discomfort serves as a rehearsal for greater trials, preparing the mind and body to face the unexpected with calm and composure. At first, their body resists and their mind protests. Doubt whispers that the effort is unnecessary, that avoidance is safer, easier. But each time they persist, a subtle transformation occurs. Muscles tighten, posture straightens, heart steadies, and the mind sharpens. They begin to notice that challenges previously feared no longer intimidate them. Discomfort, once an enemy, becomes a trusted teacher. This practice also cultivates mental resilience. They learn to endure frustration, to remain calm under pressure, and to persist when others would falter. Every deliberate hardship strengthens patience, focus, and the ability to act decisively in moments of stress. Over time, they internalize a profound truth: the trials we willingly face prepare us for those we cannot avoid. Through repeated exposure, they build a shield of experience and self-confidence. Setbacks lose their power to paralyze. Fear diminishes as familiarity with discomfort grows. They understand that voluntary hardship is the ultimate exercise in self-mastery, training both mind and body for life's inevitable storms. Finally, they anchor themselves with a declaration: comfort does not make me stronger, challenge does. With this principle, they embrace every difficulty as an opportunity, knowing that the strength gained today will carry them through all trials yet to come. Beyond daily small challenges, the person begins to see patterns in their reactions to adversity. They notice that discomfort, once feared, now signals growth and opportunity. When fatigue threatens to overwhelm, they recognize it as a chance to strengthen willpower. When social pressures or criticism provoke anxiety, they treat these moments as training for emotional resilience. They also begin to structure deliberate hardships across different aspects of life. Financial restraint, waking early to pursue meaningful work, or sitting in silence without distraction, all become exercises in self-discipline. Each voluntary challenge builds not only endurance, but also awareness, a deeper understanding of their fears, limits, and strengths. Over time, the person discovers a profound shift in perspective. Failures that once felt catastrophic now appear as necessary feedback, guiding refinement of character and judgment. The discomfort they willingly accept makes the uncontrollable disruptions of life feel less threatening. Storms that might have once shaken their confidence are now met with steady composure, born from repeated experience in facing voluntary hardship. This practice reinforces patience and humility. They understand that true mastery is not about avoiding pain, but about embracing it with intention and using it to grow. Each moment of discomfort becomes a deliberate step toward becoming unshakable. They internalize that resilience is cumulative. Small daily acts of courage and persistence compound over time to create strength that can withstand the most unexpected challenges. Anchoring this understanding, they repeat the principle as both guidance and affirmation. Every deliberate challenge prepares me for what I cannot avoid. Comfort does not make me stronger. Challenge does. With this mindset, the person is ready to face life fully, turning voluntary hardship into a powerful, transformative force that fortifies mind, body, and spirit. 6. Detach from outcome. Love the process. The person in this story has learned to endure deliberate challenges and face discomfort head-on, yet they begin to notice another trap: attachment to results. Even with effort and resilience, outcomes often remain unpredictable. Projects may fail, recognition may be withheld, and efforts may go unseen. In the past, these uncertainties would have provoked frustration, anxiety, or despair. Stoic philosophy teaches that peace and strength come from detachment from outcomes. By focusing on the process rather than the result, the individual preserves energy and maintains clarity. Their attention shifts from what life delivers to what they contribute: effort, intention, and consistency. Success becomes a byproduct, not a measure of self-worth. They practice defining the ideal process each day. Morning routines, skill development, physical training, and personal reflection become anchors that keep them centered. When disappointment arises, they remind themselves that the value lies in disciplined action, not external validation. Through this mindset, challenges are no longer daunting. Obstacles that might have previously felt overwhelming now serve as exercises in patience and focus. They learn to act with reasoned judgment, responding to circumstances without being swayed by potential outcomes. The mind gains a sense of freedom, unshackled from the unpredictability of the external world. They also adopt a reflective habit. After each task or challenge, they examine their approach rather than obsessing over results. This reinforces learning and improvement, cultivating resilience over mere success. The cumulative effect of consistently loving the process is profound. Confidence, calm, and clarity become natural companions, even in uncertainty. Finally, they internalize a guiding principle. Strength is found in the process, not the outcome. Mastery lies in action, not reward. With this wisdom, the person moves forward with purpose, grounded in effort, undisturbed by the whims of circumstance, and prepared for whatever challenges lie ahead. 7. Live with awareness. Memento Mori. The person in this story begins to realize that life is fragile and fleeting. Each moment carries the weight of impermanence, yet in the rush of daily routine, it is easy to forget. They notice how often they delay action, postpone meaningful work, or avoid confronting fears, assuming there will always be another chance. Stoic philosophy emphasizes memento mori, the remembrance of death, not as a source of fear, but as a catalyst for awareness. By acknowledging the inevitability of their mortality, the individual learns to act with urgency, to prioritize what truly matters, and to shed trivial distractions. Each morning, they reflect on what would matter most if today were their last day. This practice sharpens focus, heightens appreciation, and drives intentional action. They begin to approach life with clarity. Relationships are treated with presence and care. Opportunities are seized without hesitation. Creative endeavors are pursued with wholehearted dedication. When setbacks occur, they perceive them not as threats, but as tests that can strengthen character. The inevitability of death gives context to challenges, turning fear into motivation rather than paralysis. Through repeated reflection, the person internalizes a profound truth. Time is the most valuable resource, and how it is spent defines the life lived. By living each day with awareness, they cultivate mindfulness, resilience, and purpose, making deliberate choices instead of reacting passively to circumstance. They anchor themselves with a guiding thought. They live as if time is borrowed, because it is. With this awareness, every action is infused with meaning, and the person begins to navigate life with intention, courage, and profound presence. 8. Live for virtue, not for approval. The person in this story has learned to face discomfort, master responses, accept reality, focus on what can be controlled, embrace deliberate hardship, and love the process while living with awareness. Yet there is another challenge that tests the strength of their character, the desire for external approval. For much of life, they had measured themselves against the praise, recognition, and validation of others. Each compliment felt like a temporary boost, each criticism a potential wound. Their actions, once authentic and deliberate, had often been swayed by what others would think, leaving them dependent on a fleeting and unreliable source of worth. Stoic philosophy teaches that true freedom lies in living according to virtue, not in seeking approval. Marcus Aurelius and Seneca both emphasized the cultivation of inner character as the highest measure of success. The person begins to understand that living rightly, making ethical choices, and acting in alignment with personal principles is far more valuable than any applause from the outside world. Approval may come and go, but integrity and virtue endure. They start practicing by choosing one principle to follow each day, committing to it without concern for recognition or reward. Perhaps it is honesty in a difficult conversation, courage to take responsibility for a mistake, or patience in the face of provocation. Each act of virtue becomes a test and a demonstration of inner strength, reinforcing that their value does not depend on anyone else's judgment. At first, the absence of external acknowledgement feels strange. There is a temptation to revert to old habits, to seek praise or avoid disapproval. But they persist, learning to derive satisfaction from alignment with their own principles, rather than from the reactions of others. In doing so, they experience a profound liberation. Their actions are no longer dictated by fear, social pressure, or expectation. They move through life guided by internal compass, rather than external applause. Over time, this commitment to virtue reshapes the person's interactions and decisions. They notice a steadiness that was absent before, a quiet confidence that does not demand validation. When confronted with opposition or criticism, they remain composed, grounded in what is right rather than in what is popular. Relationships deepen with authenticity. Choices are made with clarity, and each decision is measured against enduring principles rather than the shifting standards of society. They begin to see that virtue is not passive. It requires courage, persistence, and self-awareness. The person intentionally chooses to act rightly, even when no one is watching, embracing discomfort when ethical decisions require sacrifice. They recognize that integrity often demands solitude, and that the path of virtue may lead them against the crowd, yet the strength of character gained is priceless. Through daily practice, patience, and reflection, they weave virtue into the fabric of their being, allowing it to guide every thought, word, and action. In their reflections, they observe the power of detachment from approval. No longer swayed by flattery or criticism, they are free to focus on meaningful work, personal growth, and the pursuit of what is truly valuable. Challenges and setbacks, once sources of anxiety, now become opportunities to exercise ethical judgment, demonstrating courage, resilience, and self-control in every situation. Even in moments of temptation, when shortcuts or compromise would be easier, they remind themselves of the enduring principle. Their actions define their character, not the opinions of others. Each choice becomes a conscious alignment with inner values, strengthening the sense of self and building a foundation for lasting satisfaction and freedom. They come to embrace a quiet confidence, one that does not shout, seek attention, or demand acknowledgement. It is a strength rooted in the knowledge that living virtuously is the ultimate measure of success. External approval becomes inconsequential, like passing clouds, while internal integrity shines steadily as a guiding light. Finally, they anchor this understanding with a statement that guides every moment. They become warriors for what is right, not for what is popular. Every decision, action, and reflection is filtered through this principle, allowing them to navigate the complexities of life with courage, clarity, and unwavering purpose. Through this discipline, they cultivate resilience, wisdom, and peace, standing firmly in the conviction that living for virtue is the truest form of freedom. Even as society pressures them with expectations, the person remains centered. They act with patience, temperance, and justice, letting these virtues govern behavior instead of the desire for validation. When conflict arises, they respond with fairness and composure, knowing that true respect is earned through integrity, not through popularity. Challenges no longer intimidate them because they are fortified by principles that cannot be shaken. Daily reflection becomes a ritual. They evaluate choices against their values, acknowledging both successes and lapses, and adjusting their behavior to remain aligned with virtue. Through repetition, this practice solidifies, transforming ethics from abstract ideas into lived experience. Virtue becomes the framework through which all life events are interpreted, giving clarity and direction even in chaos. Over time, they notice the profound impact of living for virtue on relationships, work, and personal growth. Trust is earned naturally. Decisions are made swiftly and confidently, and inner peace is maintained regardless of external turbulence. By prioritizing character over approval, they achieve a freedom that the applause of others could never provide. Ultimately, the person embodies the Stoic ideal, a life directed by reason, virtue, and self-mastery, unmoved by fleeting praise or condemnation. They act rightly, endure hardships, and live fully, knowing that the measure of a person is not in recognition, but in the courage and integrity with which they navigate each day. The journey of this person illustrates the profound power of the Stoic path. From embracing discomfort to mastering responses, accepting reality, focusing on what can be controlled, enduring deliberate hardship, loving the process, living with awareness, and committing to virtue. They have transformed each challenge into a stepping stone for growth. Life's inevitable trials, once overwhelming, now serve as opportunities to strengthen character, sharpen judgment, and deepen resilience. They have learned that true strength does not come from external validation, comfort, or the absence of obstacles. It comes from consistent action, conscious choice, and alignment with enduring principles. Each setback faced with courage, and each hardship met intentionally fortifies mind, body, and spirit. The person no longer fears failure, rejection, or criticism, because their sense of self rests on virtue and self-mastery rather than on the shifting opinions of others. Ultimately, this journey demonstrates that growth is not passive. It is cultivated daily through deliberate challenges and thoughtful reflection. By focusing on what can be controlled, letting go of what cannot, and living in alignment with inner values, a person can navigate life with clarity, courage, and purpose. Every moment becomes an opportunity to practice resilience, wisdom, and integrity. The message is clear. Life will knock down anyone, but those who internalize these principles will rise stronger, unshakable, and free. They become masters of themselves, impervious to circumstance, and empowered to live fully, guided by reason, virtue, and unwavering purpose. This is the essence of living a Stoic life, transforming adversity into strength, fear into discipline, and existence into a path of deliberate, meaningful action.